God bless, God bless. It is 6:46 a.m. in the morning. This is your boy, Stephen J. On my way to work. I just wanted to touch on something a little bit. It was on my mind last night and it was on my mind this morning. Man, first, pray for America, man. What's going on in Washington right now is such dysfunction. Democratic, Republican, such dysfunction right now. But yesterday I'm on Facebook, and I follow Ex Ministries. I actually like G. Craig Lewis, and he posted on something about his, I don't know if it's his latest series on the truth behind hip hop, and he talks about SnoopDog. But he talks about Fred Hammond collaborating with SnoopDog, and he was saying some things about how SnoopDog sold his soul to the devil, how his music is filled with perversion, drugs. It's basically the music is not good at all because of what it promotes. It promotes lasciviousness. It promotes a lot of things that are against the Bible. And all of that is accurate. All of that is correct. And they were pretty much slamming Fred Hammond because I believe he has a collaboration with Snoop Dogg coming up. And Fred Hammond chimed in, which I was shocked that he chimed in because most people, G. Craig's out there now. He's out there now. He wasn't out there. He got out there when he did the thing about Juanita Bynum, and he just blew it from that point. But if you ever listen to the message about the truth behind hip hop, he's absolutely correct. But anyway, Fred Hammond chimed in, and I'm not going to go word for word about what he said, but he said that, he sat down and he talked with Snoop Dogg, and he was saying that, he heard his heart. And he also said that, he basically understand what was being said about the music and everything like that, but he said Snoop Dogg approached him about wanting to do something for God. And he reached out to Fred Hammond. So he said, Fred said they talked, and he heard his heart, and he was like, he says, we haven't even discussed money or contracts or anything like that. And he was like, I looked at it as an opportunity to drop a seed. And that's what he was looking at it as, an opportunity for him to drop a seed on knowledge about Christ, because Snoop Dogg is inquiring about it. And so many people lambasted Fred Hammond, started throwing Bible scriptures at him and this, that, and the other. And Fred's defense was basically, I'm dropping the seed and I'm going to leave that up to God about his life. But if he's inquiring, who am I to judge as far as, his cry? And here's my take. And I just felt so bad that Fred was being, oh, you're out for the money and this, that, and the other, you're wrong and this, that, and the other. And immediately, I don't know, ever since I was a child, growing up in church, I would read something and I just had the ability, this makes sense, to just imagine what is actually happening. To actually see, and I can actually feel what I'm reading. And it's weird and I can't really explain it. That's the best way I can explain it. But what I read, I can actually feel what I'm reading. And Fred just kept bringing up that point about dropping a seed, and it's just like nobody was listening to him. They just wanted to point out that Snoop ain't saved and this, that, and the other. And my problem is, the first thing that just popped into my mind was that scripture where the parable Jesus gives, where the two people, and the righteous man was saying, God, I thank God that I'm not like this sinner over here, and yada 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 yada, and I'm glad I'm not like that. And then the sinner just cried out, Lord, save me, whatever, a sinner. That popped into my head. Another thing popped into my head was the woman at the not the issue of blood, the woman at the well, because Jesus had a conversation with this woman, and even before that, once the disciples got there, they were like, "Oh, what is he talking to her? Why is he talking to her? She's from Samaria," and really, they were showing they're indignant about Jesus talking with this woman. But the Bible says they dare not ask. And when they was like, "Did you get something to eat?" and he was like, "I'm eating something that this is my food right here to do the will of my Father." And it was that love that Jesus Christ shown that transformed this woman. He didn't come down hard on her, other than saying that, go call your husband. And it wasn't the point to sit there and pull her out on Front Street. It was to say, go call your husband, because I need for her to understand where she is at in life. But I also want her to understand where I'm at and where I'm coming to, which is I'm going to love her where she's at. That's why when she said, well, the Messiah's coming and he's going to teach us all these things. And Jesus revealed to her, that's me. And based on that love encounter, she went back and told the townspeople about Jesus. The men came out and they met Jesus and compelled Jesus to stay a few more days. And I thought I said, what if Snoop is reading this Facebook feed that Ex Ministries put out? What if Snoop is reading all the comments right now? Would that, and I go judge for yourself, go read it for yourself. I encourage, and I'm like, if he goes on there and reads that, would he come to Christ based on that? Because I find it very interesting that he wants to do something about God. I find it very interesting that he reached out to Fred Hammond. I mean, he could have reached out to Lecrae. He could have reached out to Kirk Franklin. As far as, that's mainstream out there. And I've always been a Fred Hammond fan. I think Fred got like this cool swag with him or whatever. And I think his best album for me was Pages of Life 1 and 2. But he reached out to Fred Hammond. And if Fred prayed about it, Lord, should I do this? And he got the okay from God, and I'm always, consult God on decisions like that. Because I know people say, hey, don't let your good be evil spoken of, and shun the very appearance of evil, and all this kind of stuff they were throwing out. But Paul also said what he became to win souls. And if I'm going to collab to get an opportunity, because Snoop does have, in actuality, Snoop does have a platform. He does have a following. And if God can touch the heart, God who knows the heart of man, and if God through Fred can touch Snoop's heart to save, as a matter of fact, Snoop's mom is a preacher, and I remember her, I think it was on TBN or whatever, saying that God promised her that Snoop was going to be preaching. And, her appeal at the time, that was years ago, was that, keep praying for him, keep praying for him. But that's still her son. So if Snoop went on Facebook feed, everyone's talking about it, because there was a lot of comments and everything on it, is that going to bring him to Christ? And it had me thinking about, and I believe it was Mahatma Gandhi, that read about Christ and said, oh, I like this guy. I really like this guy. I want to. But then he met a Christian and he's like, you're Jesus I like, but you Christians I don't. And from that point, because of the Christians that he met, he didn't follow Christ, because he saw, if what I read, a non-Christian, about Christ and the love that he's shown, but yet I meet you who are supposed to be followers of him, but yet that's not drawing me to Christ, there's a disconnect somewhere. And if any other non-Christian would read that, how they're going after Fred for collaborating with SnoopDog. If any other non-Christian would read that, how would that bring them to Christ? And a lot of people say, it's about the truth and, the truth of the gospel. But I think about this that Jesus did, and I think it's significant, and it's a shame that it's not really practiced. Because this is how Jesus Christ won. And I think about it, and I'll put it this way. Growing up, my mother, she cleaned houses during the day. And we came home, she fixed us dinner, and she was home for maybe like 3 hours, maybe 2 hours. Then she would leave again to go clean offices. And there were a lot of occasions that my brother and I, we went out and helped her clean those offices at night, because, we can get in those places to help her out. And, I know she was tired from cleaning those houses and kind of clean offices at night, but, whatever she had to do to put food on her table, clothes on her back, roof over our head. But when she went out, especially like now during the summer, before she left, she would always make sure that her agenda was followed, that we did what we were supposed to have done while we were away. We were the cleaners of the house, pretty much. And she would always remind us. So before Jesus left this earth and descended, oh, that is a hot car. That is, I don't even know what that is. It's not a Lamborghini or Ferrari, but it is hot. Sidetrack sometimes. But before Jesus left, he said, a new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you. And by this will all men know that you're my disciples, if ye love one another. So people are going to identify and connect you with Christ by the way you love one another. That is going to be the identified factor of how they connect you to me, is by the way that you love on them where they're at. And it's necessarily, it's the woman that was caught in the very act, that you that hasn't sinned yet, throw the first stone at this lady. Woman, where are your accusers? Then I don't accuse you. Go away, sin no more. That's it. I'm going to love on you where you at, to go show you an opportunity to love on Christ, that he forgives. Snoop Dogg puts out this music, his smoking weed and stuff like that. That is all wrong. But if there's an opportunity for me to get in his presence, to drop a seed, and it's always about 3 words. Have you considered? That's those 3 words. Have you considered? Just to give him an opportunity. Well, his mom's a preacher. Okay, maybe that's not the avenue that he's going to hear, because, that's his mother. That's always, he's going to connect her with mom being mom, whatever. But just someone that can connect and say, hey, and just can drop a word and say, have you considered about Jesus Christ? If you think about this, and if you would die right now, and I remember when I wasn't saved, and I had the thought that, hey, and it was, I live right in Delaware. I live in Florida now, but in Delaware I live right now next to I-95. And And 95 was like rough. And every time I got on 95, it would always run through my head, man, what if I got into an accident and died? I would go to hell. I wasn't saved. And I would think, man, yeah, I would just go to hell. But I did not make the decision to come to Christ. I grew up in church. Didn't make the decision to come to Christ. My mother was like, you need to be saved, yada, yada, yada. It was until that time when I was at my lowest that I was like, God, I need you. And God opened that door. God came. Someone dropped that seed. And he loved me where I was at, and I came. Even after I got saved, I made mistakes. And my worst mistake, God said the word, because no one knew what I was going through, that he still loved me. And even when I inquired, I said, when did the Lord tell you that? As soon as you walked in the door, the Lord told me to go to you and to tell you that. And so my point is, everyone was jumping on Fred, and the world is looking at this. How does that bring them to Christ? And if Fred is led by God to drop a seed with Snoop, they share Jesus Christ, and to hopefully win him over, all power to you, Fred. I'm praying for Fred. And you know, even people got on Fred last night about his music. Oh, your music has changed and all this stuff. And I'm like, what? We're supposed to be showing the love of Christ, and we're bashing our own. And I heard someone say years ago, Christians are the greatest army that kills their wounded. We kill our wounded, and instead of nursing them back to health, we kill our wounded. And it just bothered me. And again, I like Ex Ministries as far as truth behind hip hop, but sometimes I think we so focused on what we perceive is the truth. And we're throwing scriptures that are truth, but we're missing the message altogether. We're missing the message altogether. And it's kind of like we really need to seek God on how to win souls, because we can't win souls by bashing people. It takes precision. It takes, even as great as Paul is, stood before King